This is TWiT.
All right, get serious because we have a serious guest on.
Yes, we
Do you
do.
mind? Do you mind?
Okay,
MG
we'll
Siegler is
behave.
an old friend, been on TWiT many times in the past. He then left for a great career as a venture capitalist. Were you at True Ventures, Google Ventures? Where were you, MG?
Google Ventures, yeah.
Google Ventures.
And is that Google or Googa?
Google or Google?
Now he's adjourned to London, which is pretty cool.
Yes, hence the darkness here.
But even before you were a VC, you were, I think, a very successful, well-known tech journalist. And I think you have a little hankering to get back into the game.
Yeah, I did the VC job for a little over a decade, and that was good fun.
How was that transition?
It was good. I mean, now it became sort of a cliched thing, right? There became this sort of TC to VC thing. I was at TechCrunch for a long time, and
Classic.
and it became sort of a more well-trodden path afterwards. But honestly, it set me up well. I didn't go to school to sort of become a journalist. I stumbled into it. And so when the opportunity came to sort of move onto a tangential career, I jumped at that. And yeah, it's sort of finding interesting companies to write about was the same high level mandate. Obviously, there's some differences in the day-to-day, but yeah, it worked well, I hope, knock on wood, for me. And now I'm just still love writing, so trying to get back to that.
Well, you're great. And you still a little bit have your hand in business. It says, according to Wikipedia, you're on the board for Slack.
Well, I was before it went public. Yeah, Wikipedia.
Okay.
They're
and
pretty
you
slow
were
to
invested in Medium and Secret, which is cool.
God bless.
Yeah.
No longer 500-ish words. I did enjoy that, though. I love the conceit that you could get anything done in 500 words or less.
Thank you. I've always been trying to, come up with little mind hacks to get me spurred writing again. But
his current newsletter, Spyglass, Insight from Afar, not so far, just across the pond, is actually well worth reading. And I've been trying to get you on for a while because you write a lot about AI. By the way, I did have to say, I agree with you about Google's distractingly smarmy Pixel event. We talked about this last week.
Yeah, that was a weird watch. From afar, wasn't there, of course, but yeah, it was. I don't know how I feel about taking a late night talk show host to sort of do these things.
Well, and look at Jimmy Fallon. Your picture, I love what you picked. Adrienne Lofton was beautifully put together, really great presenter. She's of course CMO at Google. But Jimmy looks like, I thought he was jet lagged until I found out the event was in Brooklyn. It was just, I guess he had a late night on the subway. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
But it just doesn't look all there.
He was rough. He did. The whole thing just had a weird vibe to it. Very strange. I don't think we'll see them do that again anytime soon.
No, I think
they got the message.
Yeah, pretty clear. What do you think they were trying to do? Was they it was my impression that Google still has ambitions of being a consumer device, the Pixel.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everyone for the past couple decades has been trying to emulate the Apple model of doing these things, the Steve Jobs keynotes. And, I think Amazon and some others have tried to switch things up a little bit and had varying degrees of success, some less so. But I didn't hate the overall notion of what they were trying to do, bring on someone who is established, Jimmy Fallon, doing a sort of sit down and see if they can take some of the weight off the shoulders of the people who, while they're fine presenting, that's not what their actual job is, right? And you think like, oh, maybe he can grease the wheels and get a conversation going a bit, but it just felt fake, right? It felt stilted. The whole thing was like just awkward. And so again, I don't hate the idea to try it, but it just didn't work from the.
I thought the Googlers all did a better job than the stars.
For sure.
Did.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's kind of part of the real embarrassment. The other thing was they
bar
had a
is so
compelling
low
story
for the
to tell.
Googlers.
Yeah,
Sorry?
Jimmy Fallon.
I was saying the bar is just so low for the Googlers. It's really impressive that they did better
Adrienne
than
Lofton
expected.
was incredible. She was really talented and really she was a presenter. And Jimmy just was phoning it in. And the thing that bothered me the most was they actually had a story to tell, which got buried under the razzmatazz.
100%. Yeah. look at where Apple's at right now, right? They're trying to sort of come back around, and they've obviously flubbed the AI story. Google has the great AI story with these devices, and yet they, looking back at that event, I can't even remember sort of what the main features they were trying to convey were, because it was so distracted by the whole Jimmy Fallon being excited about the color palette and being excited about the
and getting it wrong,
waterproofing.
Incidentally.
Yes,
he picked up the wrong phone and named it the wrong color. She says, Moonstone, Jimmy. It's not purple. And it was funny because a couple of days later, Google revealed that they had been secretly testing a new image generation model, Nano Banana, and said, no, it's not Nano Banana. It's actually part of Gemini. And it is, I think, arguably the best video and picture generator out there now. And they didn't even mention that in the event last week. It's like, you're burying the lead. I did this. This is embarrassing. I'm going to show you this because this is going to gross you out. This is a picture I took last night. We went to an Italian restaurant, and as many Italian restaurants do, they had a statue in the front of a fat
Only
chef.
in California, Leo.
They don't do this in New York.
We would not do that in New Jersey.
A fat chef holding the menu, and I said, turn this into a video with the guy slurping up some spaghetti, and this is the video I got a few seconds later.
Oh no! Oh no!
Okay, now it's disgusting. It's the stuff of nightmares.
A single, about 6-inch long fat spaghetti strand flies up to his mouth, then is slurped up. Then 3 more fat spaghetti fingers come down.
Yeah, it's a little reminiscent of the Will Smith eating spaghetti.
I was going to say this is Will Smith. Wow. Okay. Anyway, it is, but it did a good job. And look, it made a video out of a completely still photo. I'll do some more.
Okay,
while
wait
we're
a
talking.
second. It did a good job? Question mark?
Well, look, it's my fault. I said the guy slurping up some spaghetti.
I didn't say in or out. I would argue it didn't do a good job of making a video of a guy slurping up some spaghetti, but it did make a fun video, that's for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to give it something else. And while we're talking, I will have it. I'm going to give it this image of a cow. Let's see here and see if it can make something happen. This is actually, or maybe should I do the tortoises? I'll do the turtles, and I'll say make them mate. How about that? That'll be fun.
Oh, geez.
So it's gonna be a while.
I don't even know how turtles shtup.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
They're not going to let you do that, right? They still have some. They'll flag.
Oh, that's a good test of the safety features. So let's talk about AI. Actually, I admit the time I wanted to get you on, you'd just written about Perplexity's perplexing offer of what was it, $32 billion?
34.5, very precise. Yes.
For Chrome, which is more than they're worth, right? They're worth like 18 billion.
More. Yeah.
And I loved your headline on the whole thing. You said, Perplexity's perplexing and positively PR offer to buy Chrome. Why not offer $1 quadrillion?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's going to hit any day now, right? They're apparently.
We're waiting for the judge any moment now. The judge should make a ruling.
Going to have to sell Chrome. I think there's probably a 0% chance that Perplexity buys them. There's probably a less than 0% chance that OpenAI buys them, even though they could probably get the actual dollar amount to do it.
This week there was an interesting offer of $0 from the eco-friendly search engine Ecosia, saying we'll make a foundation out of it. This is how it should be done, a nonprofit foundation out of Chrome.
I mean, I do think that's a better high-level idea, right? Rather than anything that the sort of judge would do would just be sort of taking the crown from one king and putting it on a new head, versus if you did it as tried to go to the actual open source or do something else that was more of a consortium, maybe it would be a little bit better. But how would you unwind that? What would Google accept? They're going to be fighting this for years and years, obviously.
What do you think the judges could possibly rule if we get a decision this week or next? And two, what do you think, I guess, separate from that, a possible remedy for this would be if you were the one making the decisions?
I mean, so, obviously, so I've been removed from Google for over a year, so I don't have no inside knowledge about what this is, and I didn't anyway, but, working for the venture arm. But I would say I would be sort of surprised if they do some sort of major action with Chrome. I do think, what everyone is saying, the obvious stuff of that they'll sort of strike down the Apple deal, right, where they pay for the default placements. That seems like it's going to go away for sure. Chrome is a question mark, and I think it's mainly a question mark because Google has done some stuff where they're like, baking some of the Gemini things into Chrome, at least in the beta builds of it, right? And it's like all the stuff now is talking about like, okay, search is sort of in its phase of being disrupted somewhat naturally by AI. And so are we worried now about, search as it stands right now? Obviously, all this antitrust stuff is usually done in hindsight, litigating it in hindsight. So how much does the judge actually care about like the go forward elements of this? And Tim Wu wrote an op-ed the other day in New York Times about it, like trying to seem like very much sort of convey to the judge that they should be worried about the AI market as the next frontier, right? That this is what this is about.
But this is where Google has tons of competitors. AI itself is a competitor to search, and there's tons of competitors in Google, but Tim Wu will always say that.
Yes, of course, right. That's his thing. But so that's like the thing to watch for, like what the judge buys or doesn't buy in that regard. Like if there's any movement on Chrome, it probably has to be related to the notion that it would be used to transfer over Google's power in search to the AI world. And can you really litigate that without knowing it for sure? To Jeff's point, like there's a lot of competition in that space right now.
And it's going to be in courts for years.
Yeah.
And it depends on what does Google bring a platinum block to Trump? The gold block?
How do you trump a 24-karat brick?
Yeah, what's more valuable than that? And then he just says, no, I don't want this to happen, and we like Google.
What would concern me more, and you've written about this as well, is that he might say, well, let's take a stake in the whole thing. I think the government get
the U.S. government owning
VIG.
10% of Chrome. That would be interesting with the consortium.
Just give us Chrome and we'll take care of it from here. You could totally see that
Truth
happening.
Chrome.
Yeah. I don't know if Judge Mehta would go along with that. I don't think any of the options that the government has proposed are really starters. The other option is to get Google to stop paying Apple $20 billion, Samsung several $billion, Mozilla several $1 billion to be the default search, which would kill Mozilla, absolutely, and save Google billions of dollars. It's not a punishment,
and
Your Honor.
It's very interesting that we could potentially have Google be forbidden from, sending all of these billions of dollars to Apple at a time where Apple's potentially going to be paying Google billions of dollars to use Gemini AI to power Siri.
That was an interesting rumor that came out this week. Apple has been, Eddie Q apparently at Apple, the information says, has been pitching Tim Cook, who keeps saying, no, Eddie, to buy Perplexity or to buy somebody else, buy some
Mistral.
AI. Mistral, that's right, the French AI. And there is a rumor this week that maybe Google and Apple will weirdly, in a weird partnership, get together, and Gemini will become the heart of Siri, which I find a little far-fetched. I can't imagine Apple saying to Google, okay, we give...
But they did on search.
We can't do it.
They said on search they would do that. Everybody's it's commodified. AI right now is commodified, so they haven't found the special Apple AI way. I don't think there's any distinguishing feature. It would be capitulation,
though. It would be a complete admission.
It's a holding pattern. It's a holding pattern.
Right. It holds over until they get their actual teams in order in-house to be able to, eventually roll it out, just like they did with Maps. And that's not a good example, MG? Obviously, but eventually happened.
Has it hurt Apple that they have been, struggling with AI? Is that a problem for Apple?
It's interesting. I was sort of thinking about this today, sort of reading, that information article that you're talking about. All their Eddie Q trying to push some of these giant acquisitions.
No, Eddie,
we're not spending tens of billions of dollars, which obviously Apple never does. I would say, obviously the Wall Street sentiment right now is that it has hurt them. Like their competitors, Microsoft, and certainly, Nvidia is the most valuable company in the world, have shot past them, right, in terms of market cap. And so Wall Street views them as sort of just in a holding pattern, not sure what the story is going to be with AI. I think the story is still unfolding. I think that there's a lot of different things yet to come, but I do feel like the main concern I would have about Apple in that regard is that they just don't have the right mentality internally from what I've seen over years and years of writing about them, covering them, dating back to reporting days. Like they're a company that's built a very different way than the way that AI has sort of entered our world and entered these companies. Everything moves fast. Nothing is polished. It's all being done on the fly. Apple loves to put out the beautiful polished gem out there, right? And they famously say, we're not first, but we come in and we sort of, do the better version of whatever anyone is doing. The problem is AI just hasn't slowed down enough for them to sort of plant a flag and be able to say, like, we'll do the best version of this, because it's still just constantly moving.
Yeah, and the other problem they have is Apple really wants to promote the notion of privacy, which for a lot of people, I don't know if you're still the Apple partisan that you used to be, but a lot of people say, I only would trust Apple with this. I wish Apple would hurry up because this is how I want to use AI. I don't want to use AI with companies like Perplexity that say we're going to mine every bit of data that you give us, or even Google or Microsoft. They don't trust them in the way they trust Apple. And yet all of that privacy has held Apple back a little bit.
Yes, that was the pitch, right? That they famously flopped on last year at WWDC, that they with getting your mom home from the airport and all of that, and being able to use AI and Siri to look at your contacts, and they just couldn't quite get it done. And I think there's a whole range of reasons why that happened, but I do think at the end of the day, again, there's sort of this cultural and mentality within within Apple that I think holds them back a bit from doing that. And that's why I think you hear a lot about the M&A topic come up, because it's like that's a quick and potentially Band-Aid way to sort of jump back into the game. But I'm not sure that type of M&A, would actually go over well within Apple, and it might actually backfire in some ways, right? If they brought in a giant team working on some advanced AI, and they just culture clash within the company.
Yeah, you've picked AI as one of the things you really want to cover. I don't think you could cover tech these days without really covering AI. I'm very curious what your take is on where we stand on are we going to get at some point AGI or superintelligence? Actually, your most recent post talks a little bit about this, the endless rebranding of AI.
Yeah, right. I do think, we need to figure out what the actual terminology means to begin with.
Right.
We've gone from AI, machine learning, AGI, superintelligence. Now we have different flavors of superintelligence that various different companies are working on. Meta has their own. Microsoft has their own. We get Zuckerberg talking about personal superintelligence. Like, it's all obviously just branding and marketing. And in some ways, though, it's a legal issue too, right? With famously with Microsoft and OpenAI, their agreement in the quote unquote clause that if and when OpenAI were to declare AGI, that they would sort of be able to sever the contractual ties with Microsoft. And so
is that a weird thing? I have never heard of such a weird contractual agreement. Talk about an undefined term.
Of course, I think if I had to sort of guess as to how that played out, several years ago, it was just like OpenAI was in a weird spot, right? They had the weird sort of fallout with Elon Musk, who was their main benefactor. They needed money from Microsoft. Satya Nadella comes and smartly identifies the situation, realizes like, oh, we have an opportunity here to sort of partner with this company, and we can sort of advance AI at arm's length. It's not done within Microsoft; it's owned by an outside company. We don't own the company; we control 49% of the profits, or whatever the terms ended up being. And so, I think then, it's like OpenAI pushing back a bit. Well, it's like, okay, we don't want you to control it fully if we do actually, stumble into something interesting. So let's put this AGI clause in there, and let's just say like we get these intelligent machines that all of a sudden come out of our work. Like then we'll just sever ties and we'll take that. You guys can take the work that we've done before, and we'll go forward with this. And it's like it was all just like fantasy at the time.
How did
right?
the lawyers even say yes to that? Maybe everybody agreed, it doesn't mean anything. We'll just stick it.
And I think we're seeing the direct fallout of that now, right? The fact that these two sides are like warring with one another over these terms and trying to break these things, and OpenAI obviously trying to become a for-profit or a public benefit corporation. And so, it's like we're dealing with all these weird side effects of those decisions that were made on this, like on the fly, it felt like.
We're going to talk a little more about that next week. Karen Howe's book, The Empire of AI. Karen will be our guest. And she talks about how desperate actually OpenAI was when Elon pulled out. That they needed that money, that capital to keep going. And without it, they couldn't. So Microsoft was really a white knight in that case.
You think they would have written a better contract?
I feel like they both, what I assume is both sides thought that the ambiguity would fall in their favor.
Yes, I think you're right. I think that's
but
exactly
of course,
it.
now they're both really well financed and going for each other's throats.
Yeah. So, MG, might as well put the question to you. Is there such a thing as AGI? Could that happen?
I do.
But how would you define that?
Yeah,
I guess
that's way above my pay grade. I'm not getting these billion-dollar contracts from Zuckerberg to be able to define super intelligence.
You should hold out until you do.
Yeah. But I do think that at some point in the relative near future, OpenAI will try to declare something that they would convey is what they would consider to be AGI, and then I think there will be a giant fight amongst all the other companies, including the big players of Google and probably even Microsoft, of like what that actually. They don't necessarily agree with OpenAI's definition of it, and so I think that ultimately, I don't think that there will be like a single point in time where we cross some sort of line
the singularity
that we cross into this moment of AGI. I think it'll be a gradual thing that eventually we'll think about it.
Didn't OpenAI say it was going to be GPT-5?
They've hinted at it. I don't know if they explicitly said it. Yeah,
they implied it.
Sam Altman's hinted, that would be the thing, and obviously that hasn't. In some ways, that backfired against them, right? It set expectations way, way, way too high for what they actually ended up rolling out.
Yeah, and that actually, I think, hurt them. You talk a little bit about that as well. MG Siegler is our guest. Spyglass, the newsletter. MG's a long-time observer and frankly, a long-time friend, although I was just looking, the last time you were on This Week in Google was 2011, so 14 years ago.
Jeez.
It was before I was at Google, and obviously Google has some rules about appearing on
and we lost you
services and shows and talking about their interests. But now I'm unchained, so I can talk.
Good. Well, I'd love to have you on TWiT and this show as many times as you'd like to come on. We
would love that.
I really think your writing, besides being well written, you're a great writer, and so it's always fun to read your take. Is I think pretty insightful. But you did dodge the question.
AGI question.
Yeah. I'm going to submit this. Let me submit something and see what you think. I think really what everybody's waiting for is an AI that can self-improve, because that's the hockey stick moment, right?
Yes, and basically you hear. I feel like you've heard all of the major heads of the AI division sort of talk about this. Sam Altman, Demis Hassabis. They've all talked about that they feel like they're close to that moment where basically it's the breakaway moment where the models can basically improve themselves to the point where humans don't need to interface with them anymore, and you can just let them run free on their own, and then. ... all of a sudden we have AGI or super intelligence or whatever we end up wanting to call it. Again, I feel like there won't be a singular moment. I know this is not that exciting of an answer. I just feel like it'll be something where we look back in hindsight where it's like, there was like 0.1 to 10 of like these moments of inflection where there were great steps along the path, but it wasn't obvious when we actually crossed into that. And I do think like there's all sorts of open questions of like, still are LLMs themselves going to be the thing that actually get us to there, or they're going to need to be the next phase of AI? Are we going to need to move into robotics and the actual human world to sort of cross more into what we would consider to be intelligence?
What was it like in because you left Google Ventures a year ago, right?
Yeah, about a year ago.
So and Google was doing, I've long argued that Google didn't give itself enough credit around AI. So that when ChatGPT came out, Google acted like it was behind when it wasn't. But put that aside. What was the reaction like within venture world, within your world, when ChatGPT came out and the reaction was what it was?
Yeah, the reaction when ChatGPT first hit, it was interesting because, like, if you remember, right before ChatGPT hit, they had done DALL-E, right? OpenAI had released the image generation tool, which was impressive. It now seems rudimentary, but it was impressive at the time, right? And then ChatGPT came along, and it's like, oh, this is sort of an interesting, cute experiment of like how you can create a chatbot. Obviously, we've all experienced chatbots over many years, dating back to message boards and AOL and everything, and right. And so it was a little bit misleading of like, is this really going to be the future of artificial intelligence, or is this just some cute sort of experiment that OpenAI came up with? And then it really wasn't until I think basically the GPT-4 moment when at least from my vantage point that I saw VCs really starting to take it seriously. Obviously, OpenAI had raised money not just from Microsoft, but Khosla and some others had sort of put money into the company. And it's not clear how much of that was betting on Sam Altman, who is a repeat entrepreneur and sort of just betting that he would be able to sort of figure out a way to make this world come into place. But I do think like once GPT-4 is when I really remember everyone started to just scramble to figure out on the investor side, on the VC side, like what do we need to do here? What do we need to figure out? Like how many companies are going to be formed out of this? And then, of course, Anthropic had spun out of the OpenAI team, right? And so there were other labs that were coming about. But it was also, remember, the end of the crypto sort of fallout, right?
Oh, so they were looking for the next thing, weren't they?
People were looking for the next thing, but also many VCs felt very badly burned by the crypto situation.
Interesting.
So it was
and
more
the whole metaverse affair.
And
Web3.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
NFTs.
Facebook had become Meta, and they had gone down that path, and there were a lot of VR was going to be the next big thing again, and then crypto was going to be the next big thing, and people were getting burned. The SBF thing happened, and it's just like it was sort of like a fool me once situation where I think a lot of investors were looking at it like, let's just wait and see. We need to put the brakes on this one. So you see OpenAI all of a sudden raising at $1 billion, and then like $8 billion, and it's like, what is going on here? Is anyone, watching this? Does anyone care what the sort of numbers look like? And then it was already sort of too late at that point for many investors to invest.
Do you think, MG, if you were investing today, is it a bubble?
I think it's going to play out similarly to other previous technological waves have happened. I do think that there will be an overbuild out. I'm not sure it'll be to the extent of like network infrastructure and things in the past, but I do think that there will have been an overbuild out on the sort of GPU side and these servers and these data centers. And then good things will come out of that. But I do think that there will be, at some point, there will be a reckoning probably in the public markets. NVIDIA just had earnings right now. They're fine from what I saw quickly, but they're not as blowout as they have been in the past, right? So there's some trepidation that things are slowing down and that this might not, this things might be slowing down. And so I do think that there will be a slowdown again. I'm not sure it'll be like a crypto winter situation as bad as that was. But I do think there will be a big shakeout. And I do think there's a lot of companies that will ultimately need to figure out their landing spot, right? And we're seeing all these sort of faux acquisitions happening. And I think we'll see a lot more of those as just talent sort of coalesces around the quote unquote winners who have all the money they need to be able to sort of operate in their space.
Yeah, NVIDIA is doing its analyst call right now. Thank you. You're missing it. I'm sorry. But 56% increase in revenue to $46.74 billion, and the market after hours punishing them with a drop of $4.39 and still going down. Yeah, part of the problem is China said we're not going to buy those crappy H20s that you're trying
Well,
to
not just
force.
crappy, but you're going to do the rest of what we
Hacked.
do to you.
Yeah.
We know that trick.
Yeah, we know that
Early
trick.
data center sales, missed estimates.
Yeah, snowflake pops, CrowdStrike drops. I don't know. I guess Bloomberg's writing the headlines today. So anyway.
How do you use AI like as a consumer?
I mean, I use it basically. The one use case I've been thinking about a lot in sort of the past few weeks. That is a fun one, but is sort of trivial. Is every time I watch a show now, after I'm done, watching for the evening, I'll just say, "Give me a rundown on what happened in that show."
That's so smart. I didn't know you could do that.
It's like a fun read, right? Like we all used to do that with visiting a website, right? And they'll either write a review of the episode or do something like that. But these usually come out a day or
that's
even a week later.
Game of Thrones was a success primarily because there were so many analytic blogs after
Absolutely,
each episode.
right. The
saying,
post-show
what happened?
live hangs and things like that. And this is sort of a personalized version of
Brilliant.
that. That's writing it
What
for
do you use for that?
Just ChatGPT. So I'll just load it up and I'm like, so I'm watching the new Alien Earth show right now, right?
Yes.
And I'm just like, okay, so I haven't watched the current one, episode 4 yet, but I watched episode 3 last
I haven't
week.
seen
And
it yet
just
either.
like,
Okay.
and it's just like, okay, so run down what happened in episode 3, and it like gives me like, a good page worth of data that's like interesting, and you can hop off from there. And it's sort of like, it's like visiting
How does it
Wikipedia.
know? Are
back
you
in the day.
recording it and
was
giving
my
it the
question,
recording, or does it just know?
No, it just knows what happened in episode
Wow.
3. These things are real time enough now, and they get enough of the data coming in.
Oh, I'm going to start doing that. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I used to wear. I've been wearing, and these guys mock me, but I wore the B dot computer that Amazon.
He
just
wore
bought,
like
and
7 of them.
the limitless pin and the rewind. Well, that's rewind, and then the Fieldy.ai and the Omi pin, and the Plod Note. I keep thinking that at some point I'm gonna wear something around my neck or on my glasses or in my ears that will do that. What you just described for a show, but for my life.
What just happened? What did I just watch?
Give me a summary of yesterday. I can't.
Yes. Wouldn't that be great? Have you? What do you know? You think that's going to happen? I think that's going to be great.
I
That's
mean,
what
in some
maybe
ways,
Johnny Ive's doing for OpenAI. I don't know. I feel like it.
I saw there was some backlash, and maybe it was this morning, maybe it was yesterday, around like someone sent out a note, maybe just on social media, saying like, don't use AI for journaling, right? Like journaling should be about you.
Yeah, that's a big thing now. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
And
I
so don't
deleted
use
all
that
my
to-
Obsidian notes. I don't. Yeah, right. I don't use AI for journaling. I write, but I was
But I
thinking
feel
it was
like-
a good idea.
So I am of the belief that I did write a thing about this, that like basically a lot of people ask, the obvious question of like, is AI going to replace writing for people? And I do think it will for many tasks, right? And obviously it's a big topic of debate within schools right now for homework and whatnot. And I do think those things will suss themselves out eventually. Jeff will have a lot more thoughts on that than I do. But I do think my mentality on this has always been like, part of the thing I love about writing, and people who write a lot understand this, but like people who don't, I don't think this is an obvious statement, but it's not so obvious to people who don't write a lot for a living. It's just as much about like what's going on in your head as much as what's being put on the page, right? And so it's
process.
like you're getting something out of it, out of the process of it. And so I feel like if you're just going to use AI to write everything for you, you're really just cheating yourself at the end of the day. And people will eventually come around to that notion of like the value that you're actually getting from it. And so same idea though with journaling, right? Like what are you actually doing this for? Are you doing this just to jot down like what actually happened? Or are you doing this like to actually go through it in your mind of like what actually you lived through and experienced? And I think that that's the key point of it, that again, the human experience coming through.
It's not so important with a TV show, but it is important with your life.
It's true.
You don't have to watch every moment of the TV show. Actually, I had this conversation with a neighbor who's a high school teacher, and I said, "Are you dealing with AI?" She said, "Yeah," and I don't know what to tell people and kids. And I said exactly the same thing, which is, if a kid cares about learning, this is the real challenge of any teacher, is to get a kid to care about learning.
Yeah.
It's easy to explain to them that using the AI is going to short circuit that process. You can use it, but it should be used in the help you learn, not to replace the learning, the exercise. It can be used to help you write, but not to replace the process of writing. And
Clay
I hope
Shirky had an op-ed in the Times this week. Clay, much quoted in the old days of blogging, now a deputy provost at NYU, and arguing for blue books, which we get, but also for things that don't scale to large classes, right? One-on-ones, more of the Oxbridge model, of the tutor, challenging people, having conversations with them, making them talk it through and think it through, which is great, unless you have 300 students in a class.
Unless you're at University of Michigan, and yeah. What was the biggest class you had in Michigan? I wonder.
One of those intro to like Roman history or something.
You were literally in a Colosseum.
Well, that's the best way to learn. I won't keep you any longer. I know it's late in London, but I'm so glad to reconnect with you, MG. And I do hope you'll come back on. We'll send you an email. Maybe I can get you on some of the other shows. I love your writing. I love your thinking. And I think the journey you've been on has really given you a unique perspective that we sure can use. Spyglass.org is the newsletter. There's plenty of free content. There's also paid content. In fact, that writing story, if you restart it and you go, this is good. Oh, you might want to subscribe.
You hit that paywall.
You might want to subscribe. I'm glad to see you haven't abandoned your old icon, though. That's good. He's the same old MG.
Yes.
Really a pleasure to see you, MG. It's great. Everybody should read spyglass.org. Go there. Help MG get back into the working classes. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Leo.
Give him a reason to write, right?
Good to see you. I'm happy to come on anytime. This is a good time now. Once the little ones are down, I'm
so tell me, you have kids. How old?
Yeah, I have two little girls. One is just about to turn 7, and one just turned 2. So.
Congratulations.
We were talking before you came on. They're going to become little Brits.
Yes.
Oh, they're going to get citizenship?
No, they're just accents.
Oh,
just the accents.
The most important
honestly,
part.
At this point, you might think about the citizenship part. There could be. Yeah, both you and your wife are American citizens.
Yes.
Yeah? U.S. citizens. Yes. Are you going to stay in the UK, you think, or?
Yeah. I was saying before we went on air, we've been here a little over 2 years, but we were here about 11 years ago, actually, for Google, setting up GV's European operations for a year, just a year-long visa. And once we were leaving, we knew we were going to come back at some point. And the stars aligned for us to come back a couple of years ago. And no plans to change.
If I may ask, is it hard to get a visa now?
Yeah. Is there like a special golden ticket?
I'm asking for a friend.
A friend. What would it take to emigrate is what we're trying to find out.
We actually went through a little bit of a fire drill with it because there was a visa program around investor visas, which actually got pulled shortly before we started the process. I think they were a little bit worried about sort of the European war situation brewing and whatnot. And so they didn't want to have an easy path to get sort of the visa going. But instead, I'm actually here under my wife's visa this time. So we didn't want to get it under Google because that sort of resets if you were to leave Google, as obviously ended up happening. And so we're here under my wife. She got what's called an exceptional talent visa. Basically, she's desired enough by a bunch of companies to work with over here.
Nice.
And has done enough in her career that she's was able to get one of those, and so the entire family's here on her.
What's the best part about living there besides not being here?
I actually love the time change stuff, right? I love waking up in the morning and not being bombarded by email and all of the hustle and bustle of the American market, and I have time to write and I have time to think.
Nice.
And then the downside, of course, is that once dinner time rolls around, about 6 p.m., that's when it all just hits you all at once, every single day. So.
Well, we'll only call you after dinner. How about that?
I appreciate that.
Really a pleasure, MG. Thanks. So great to see you again. Spyglass.org. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Take care. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this highlight from Intelligent Machines. You know, we do the show every Wednesday. You can watch us do it live. Or, as they say, like and subscribe. There's a link down below. Thanks.